Welcome to Time Out Coaching with Coach Tony Garbelotto. Today, I would like to welcome one of the most successful coaches in the women's and girls game here in the UK. Currently, the head coach of the top women's program in the UK, Sevenoaks Suns, and head coach of the Great Britain under-20s team. Would like to welcome Coach Len Busch. Coach, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
First, as the first normal question that I ask is, just give us a brief background of how you got involved in the game of basketball and how that did influence you towards, to starting to coach.
Boy, I saw that question, and the normal question is that I played it in high school, but I was thinking back to even as a kid, and there weren't a lot of people playing, but my sister, this is a long time ago. I had a sister who was about 12 years older than me, and she played basketball in high school, old school, almost like netball probably back then. And she had this nice leather basketball. It was beautiful, but I was told it was very, expensive and shouldn't be used outdoors. And when my sister left and went to college, I was, I don't know, I might've been 10 or something, but I started playing with that basketball, but I would take it outside. And eventually it was like a rubber balloon, with no leather left on it at all, and had to hide it from my father so he wouldn't see what I did to it. But no, we started pretty late. It was, I can remember the high school program was a very, very good program. And when I was in junior high, we played and we looked up to that program. We would go to games. It was big in the community, big crowds.
And where in America was this? Yeah,
the south suburbs of Chicago. So it was in Park Forest, Illinois. And Steve Fisher was the head coach, who went on to Fab Five fame and San Diego State. And that was my introduction to. So I was introduced to a very, very good basketball program from first year high school all the way through to the varsity program. But I also played baseball and I played football, and didn't appreciate how good the basketball program was until much later in my life, because I went on and tried to play college football, but I found out then that my high school coaches were terrible, and I wasn't prepared for college football, but I thought I was, and then realized that basketball was what I had been taught correctly.
That's a great story as well. I mean, we'll link that up in a minute with your coaching. So you go to college, and you can give us a very brief, kind of synopsis of that. But then, how did you end up in the UK? And what was what suddenly propelled you into basketball back here in the UK?
There's a lot of time from college to there, but I left after college. I started a futon company, made mattresses, cotton mattresses, and it was in the Boston area. It was a good time for it, and it took off pretty quickly, and I had a bunch of my friends working for me, and it was quite an exciting time. And I did that for 7 years. And eventually I got somewhere in there. I got married, moved to New York, and eventually sold that, and then had to think of something else to do. And I tried for a couple of corporate jobs, and they weren't really interested in somebody. I didn't feel they were that interested in me. And then I saw something that said that New York City was desperate for teachers. And I thought, you know what, I'll go teach and coach. I'll go coach basketball. So I got a job at a summer camp out on Long Island. And then I sent letters, handwritten, or not handwritten, but typed, no, there was no email then. And sent 110 letters to, every high school in New York City, public high school, and got a few interviews, and one school picked me out in Queens and said, yeah, we got some coaching and we'll start you out. And so I got thrown into a classroom in a big New York City inner city high school with no training, and started coaching. Started out coaching junior varsity boys, and then took over the varsity. The head coach said he was going to leave. My JV program did pretty well. Then he started looking like he was going to stay. So I switched to the girls program. I coached the girls for a couple of years, and then he did leave. And then I took over the boys varsity, and I coached that for 5 years. So I was in the high school for 10 years total. And it's a big 3,000 student, very diverse high school in Queens. So I got the stories. I mean, I should write a book about this stuff that happened in the high school.
You must have coached good players and also coached against some.
Yeah, I had some very good players. That was the time Lamar Odom was in New York at the time. He was at a Catholic school down the at Christ the King in Queens. And one day he's walking down the hall, and my assistant coach goes, "That's my cousin," And I go, "Well, get him here." And he goes, "He's not coming here." But there were lots of good players, a couple of whom I'm still in touch with. Rafer Alston was on.
Wow.
We played against. He only played 2 or 3 games in high school, and one of them was against us. Like there were all these court cases to get him eligible to play, and I can remember his coach at the time saying to me, "He's a pro. He's a pro." I mean, he knew he was a pro, and he was like 14. He said he's going to be a pro. But anyway, I learned, a lot of my lessons that have helped me as a coach. I learned in New York. The experiences I had. Some are if I trust what you see. I had these 2. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you there, but so at this time, is anyone giving you guidance on, how to develop, your philosophy?
Wow,
or
okay.
Did you take a lot of that from your experiences with Coach Fisher? How were you improving as a coach, external to actually being on the floor?
So I did a lot of homework all the time. I went to coaching clinics. I can remember, getting on a plane and flying to Pittsburgh for Nike clinic. I bought books, DVDs. They were huge then. There were magazines you subscribed to, and they would come and they'd have drills and articles, and so everything was in print or videos. And I had I just bought stuff all the time. And the clinics were really valuable. Now a lot's online, but so I started doing stuff that I had done in high school, and then just pick stuff up. I mean, I often look back now because I still have been learning for the past 20 years. And I think back and I go, what the hell was I doing back then? if I know so much more now, but I look back at practice plans from then, and they were good. We were doing good stuff, and you learn, but
so was there a specific style that you were trying to coach? Were you up court pressure defense, or there was some movement stuff offensively? Was there just or just really sound fundamental play?
Yeah, that was it. And it was good defense. I think it's very, very, very simple offensive stuff. That's for sure. I don't remember teaching any, pick and roll defense. I remember teaching pick and roll, offense.
Sure.
But I don't remember. Whereas now we probably spend, 35% of our time on pick and roll defense.
Absolutely.
What we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and every practice,
Yeah.
it's like we do it. So, but back then I don't think we were doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Maybe
So
there weren't as many pick and rolls,
no,
runs.
well, absolutely. And it's funny you should say that point about the practice plans, because I'm studying for my master's in elite sports coaching, and I've just actually gone back to 1998 practice plans, just to double check and photocopy a few to show to my lecturers. So that's a really interesting point.
Mm.
So you're at the, really coaching at this, really high level in high school. What's the next stage after that?
Oh, I went backwards. The next stage would have been, so right before I moved to England. So I was starting to send players, to various universities. I had good kids, and I was getting contacts. I was meeting college coaches because they were coming to games. They wanted to talk to players. So the next step would have been to go into college coaching. But the issue for me was that I started coaching. I was close to 30 when I started. So I was maybe 28, 29 when I started in New York City, um, and 10 years, 7, 8, 9 years later, I'm 37, 38. And my wife was an investment banker, working 65, 70 hours a week. And we had 2 young children with a third on the way. So when you coach college basketball, when you start in college basketball,
Absolutely.
you're on the road, man. You're recruiting, you're traveling, you're watching games, and so I couldn't turn around and tell my wife, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to take this job and start traveling around all over the place." Um, and it was too late for me to do that. I felt so I was either going to stay a high school coach for 35 years, which I don't really like doing anything for 35 years other than be married. Make sure my wife gets on. So when the school kind of went downhill, it got, the administration changed. It had been quite a good school with a good administration, and I enjoyed working there, had a lot of support. And then it just, there were some political appointments, and it just went down the tubes. A lot of people left. It wasn't fun anymore. And my wife got an opportunity in London. So, I said, what, well, if it looks good. I took a leave from teaching and was going to continue to coach. And then she got the opportunity in London. I said, well, let's go check it out. And so it looked like a good thing. I said, I'll hang out with the kids and play golf for a year or two.
Okay.
And I did that. I was like, I was in heaven. I got to spend a lot of time with the kids. I had a lot of time. I played golf. I thought I could become a competitive amateur golfer, and then I found out after a couple of years of that I could only get so low, and I said, "Well, I'm way too young to be doing this all day long. Doing just this. That doesn't involve any other people. It's not very productive." And so I started a little local club. Started coaching kids, got my own kids in. Then I needed to find some more. My kids were getting pretty good, getting better. I had 3 daughters. And so I found out about the county program. I got the kids, I started coaching in the county team. And then I heard about this woman out in Tunbridge who was training girls, a Bulgarian lady that was Red Miller Turner. And so I drove out there and I put my eldest daughter in it and started hanging around. Then I started helping. Then I started doing the sessions. And then they took those girls and they formed, the parents all decided they wanted to form a club.
Sure.
And that was the beginning of Sevenoaks Sons. There was this talented group of 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds.
At the time, and just in this kind of period leading up to that, I mean, how were you integrating yourself? Like you said, you, if I'm not mistaken, you got involved. Were you involved with the Southeast, or were you involved with London girls basketball at some sort of regional level?
Southeast.
Southeast.
Southeast, yeah. And I also was involved with London Towers. So I took when Sun started, there was another coaching one of the other teams, and I didn't really want my second daughter to play. I didn't really want her to play for that group.
Right.
So sent her to London Towers, and I coached at Sevenoaks with my eldest. And then I would go. So some nights I would go to Towers, and some nights I'd go to Sevenoaks, and then I was coaching for a while. I was coaching at both clubs.
Right. Okay.
And one day at Sevenoaks, uh, I was coaching Sevenoaks against somebody, and then Towers came in, and I coached Towers against Sevenoaks, and somebody, another coach who shall remain nameless, saw me and complained to Basketball England.
Right.
Said, he shouldn't be allowed to do it. And like I'm gonna like throw a game for one club or the other or something. And I go, well, that's crazy. I'm just trying to keep that club going. And then B said I couldn't do it anymore. So I said, okay, well then I'm going to Sevenoaks. And then a couple of players came to Sevenoaks, and Towers folded. And so they were, and I had done both to try and keep them alive.
Sure, yeah.
And there was quite a bit of bad feelings there for a while among some people over what happened. And
did you
took a few years. Go ahead.
I wanted just to ask this question. Did you ever, I mean, you're now understanding some of this history, which I had never understood from anyone. No one's ever said that to me. I'm sure that there are some senior women's coaches in this country that do know your story, or at least some of the background. Were you getting any coaches coming to you to talk to you, to ask for advice, or was there any type of like camaraderie in that sense?
Very, very rare. I mean, James Veer was at Sevenoaks for a while,
right?
Coaching boys, and no, that's always been an issue. Not a lot of people looking for help and advice. Daniel Gale, I met at Towers when he was just walking on the side, and he's just saying he wanted to get into coaching. And I brought him over to one of the boys' teams there. And then, and he's one person I've consistently, had a relationship. I got him into, he took over my little local club in Elmbridge, and then I got him into Tassis, coaching there. And then, and he went to Spain, then he came back. And he's so I've been in touch with him all over the years, but not very many people have come around and asked for any advice or help. No.
Let's just finish up this kind of the chapter, actually, just even with just as you arrive and stuff. But who would you say were the most important influences as a coach? Would you say it's Coach Fisher, or do you think that there are other people that you should reference in that situation?
No, it's Coach Fisher for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things was I would go visit him at San Diego State, and I'd go down on the practice. I'd watch him practice, and it just filled me with confidence because they weren't doing anything much different from what we do.
Right.
So in that, and he was such a, I'd walk in and he'd introduce me to the players, and he'd tell all kinds of lies about me and how good I was. And, but I learned from him about always treat your former players really, really well forever. And he would say things like, he helped out a young coach many years ago, blah, blah, like,
yeah, sure. Yeah. I've seen it many times with American coaches. That's something that I also try to do for my ex-players, and who are certainly, many of them have gone into coaching now. I've always tried to build that relationship. And, I've even seen that with coaches like Coach Jay Wright at Villanova, who, Andrew Sullivan, one of my ex-players, was there right at the start of his tenure. And then I've actually had a couple of his players, and he's the guy that will always have time for his players and invest, something to them. So that's a great situation. Did you, so now at this stage, you start the Sevenoaks journey. Was there something in your mind that said, right, this is, British basketball, girls basketball, I'm going to approach the game in this way? Or were you still just saying fundamentals, and this is how we're going to, I'm still staying true to what I do here?
No, I brought what I learned from the States and what I was successful with there here. And I think we were able to be successful because we were doing things that, other people weren't doing. So I think coaching has improved in the UK. There are a lot more coaches that are good now. But it's, yeah. So I felt we were doing things better. Like our, practices were better, or, what the players were doing was better. And, if and the players that we had got better. So, and if players see that they can get better, then they'll come to your program. So that model is now suffering because of academies. So
absolutely,
I can get kids better, but they can go to, now that there are more better coaches and these academy opportunities, they can go and spend 5 days, play 5 days a week. Kids used to go through, I have kids, drive 100 miles to come to practice at Sevenoaks, and that that's only sustainable so long, and then the family suffers, and so I say, you should go to an academy.
Yeah.
And so I can't hold on to as many players as long. So, it's changed, and it's okay. I'm going to change too. So.
Sure. So, year on year, talk to me a little bit about this culture that you've built, which started with the underage girls, and now has moved into senior basketball, and it's for sure at this moment, the start of a dynasty, not just one of the top clubs in the country. Talk about that. What are the building blocks to building that culture?
Well, it started with that, if you're here, you'll get better. So we the youth teams became quite good, quite competitive. And we had a lot of success with that, but once you, I think it was my middle, when Renee got to, she was maybe 15, 16, and I didn't want her to be the best player in the club. So we had to, well, actually, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. That first group of kids at Sevenoaks, we had some really talented players, and Red Miller pushed to start a women's team so that they could play up. And so that women's team, had some success. We had a couple different people coach it, and I stuck with the kids. And then one year we were talking about, they were looking for somebody to coach it, and they were actually interviewing. I remember sitting in a room and we're interviewing people to coach. And then I go, well, this is crazy. And I'll go, I'll coach it. So there were a couple years there where I coached Division 1, we had Division 2. I coached the women, I coached the under 18s, I coached under 16s, and I was coaching like 5 games a weekend and running from place to place. And sometimes it was the same players in all the games. And
we've all been there. Yeah.
And I brought in, I had a Rec Deng, brought her into the club so that it wasn't just kids playing in a women's league one year. And then I brought in Roz Mason because I needed somebody to go against my daughter in practice and make her better. And then we got, I added one more, and then, eventually I started to get more women. About 8 years ago, I got Kat Carr in, and she used to play with it was her and a lot of kids. And then, it just kind of snowballed from there. We started, brought in a couple more players, a couple more women. One year we had three really talented. The first year we started winning with the WBBL team, we had three really talented juniors, and we had five pretty good women. And suddenly they won, and it was kind of fun.
Right.
They won the trophy that year. They upset Nottingham in the playoff final, and then from then on, it was like, this is where we want to be.
You consistently, I understand the message here of being humble and stuff, but surely there are some things that you stress that are different from other clubs, because otherwise you wouldn't have this winning culture and this winning record. What are some of the things that are almost non-negotiables for you, as a coach in your program?
Wow. I don't know how you define good people, but we need the players and anyone who's going to be on our team. They have to be good. They have to be good people.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So they're, because it's very hard to win if people don't, aren't
Together.
Yeah. So I say, relationships are important. Quality of people. Yeah, that's the non-negotiable is that you have to want to get better.
Interesting.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say it is. It doesn't matter what happens today, as long as you buy into getting a bit better tomorrow.
Right. And talk a little bit about what's a typical week, especially for the women's team now. And you would be going up against some teams that are got academy programs that are practicing every day. So what does a typical week look like for Sevenoaks, but pre-pandemic?
A typical week would be, let's say we played a game on Saturday, so I'll review the video from the game, and see what we did well, what we need to fix the following week. So that'll form the basis of our practice. So we would practice on Tuesday. And
do you do video review of the game with the team, or do you send clips? In this day and age, obviously technology is a lot more easier. Or is that just something that you're reviewing and then you come and in pre-practice you're saying, look, we didn't deal with these, pin down actions well, or we're not moving the ball side to side, blah blah. Is that?
I'm sorry, I gotta tell someone to not turn on their blower. It's the gardeners there. Hang on. So what happens with our players is they'll go to the gym on their own, in the mornings, but on this Tuesday, whether we watch video or not depends on time and how important it is. So we only have 2 practices a week, 2 hours each, and that's what we got to fit in our normal practice, getting better at all the things that we're trying to do, fix the things from the weekend. And then the Thursday, the second practice would be a preparation for the game coming up. So what actions are we going to practice defending? What's going to be our, screen defense? How are we going to handle these players? And that's the focus of the Thursday. Every practice has transition defense practice, pick and roll, screen defense, and communication on defense.
So really defensively minded in that respect. Yeah.
And if we do video, if I see something, I'll pick out like about 6 or 7 clips. We'll sit down on the practice court. I'll bring a monitor in. We'll put it up on the monitor, and we'll look at it if I feel we need to.
Yeah.
But there always comes a point in the season where I'll say to them, all right, let's pretend we just watched all this. This is what you saw. Let's fix it today. We don't have time to do it. And then I'll also tell them at some point, I'll say, look, we talk about this every week, and it doesn't, me saying it apparently doesn't make all that much difference. So until you decide to do it because you want to do it and you want to do it for each other, as a group, until you buy into that, then it isn't going to happen, so.
Do you give ownership to that you, especially with the women's team? Are you giving ownership to some aspects? Are you talking to the players and asking them, hey, what do you think we should run, against this
definitely.
team? Or
Absolutely. And the evolution of this WBBL team with the core of veterans that I have, I mean, I do less and less. We can start out doing something and somebody will say, well, why don't we do it this way? And I go, okay, that sounds good. Let's do it that way. And that's happened it started in one of the early playoff final wins we had. I remember we're down at halftime against Nottingham, the first playoff final.
Right.
And we're in the locker room and we're trying to decide how to handle this particular player on the other team who's given us all kinds of trouble. And we said, okay, we finally decided on what we're going to do. And we get back out and just before the half starts, I go to one of the players and I say, why don't we put Gabby on her? And T says to me, she goes, yeah, we already talked about it. She's doing that.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
they'd already made the decision. And,
Sure.
this team is, that's one of the reasons they've been so consistently successful, is that they own everything that they do.
Right. Do you have any other lessons like that you think that you've learned along the way, from this, all this journey, from what the high school all the way, high school coaching all the way through to now?
Well, one big one is to trust what I see. So not necessarily what I see while the game is happening, but if I see it in video, then it's actually happened. So I had these 2 twins, the first boys team, varsity team I had, and we weren't very good, but I had these 2 twins were the best players on the team. And I'd watch the video, I'd go home and watch the video. And then I'd see that one, the one twin passed to the other twin, but somebody else was open. And I'd go and I'd go, Jamal, like, why aren't you passing the ball there? He goes, oh, I didn't see him, coach. And it kept going on all year, and then I had this like gangster that, I found in the halls who they said could play basketball. I befriended him. I got him eligible to play. I got him on the team. I shouldn't really call him a gangster, but he was, he was a tough kid, and he, I liked him. And so he's a good player. So he plays with us. And then one day the twins were like 0-15. And one of the twins calls me up at home at night and says, my father says I can't play anymore. And that it goes for my brother too. I go, wow, okay. So I find out that what happened was that something happened in the locker room between this one kid and them. I don't know if he threatened them or what, but their father was so scared they wouldn't let him play anymore. And turns out we won the next 4 straight games without them. And I realized that what I had seen was actually happening, and that we were a better team when they weren't there.
Yeah.
So I don't believe players anymore when they say I don't see them. I didn't see them.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, it's
you should have saw them. So if I see it happening, then I believe it.
Yeah,
and that was tough. One. Yeah,
Video's tough to break to get away from now. I mean, there's so much of it, and the ability to take so many clips over a series of games. I mean, just the men alone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the women are on synergy at this moment, but you know,
They are,
yeah, they
but
are.
it's
Yeah,
also, I've changed how I use it. Like I used to beat the boys over the head with it,
right,
and that's not, I don't find that as, I've sort of gotten away from that.
sure,
Uh, I don't know if it would be the same if I was coaching men or not, but it's, I make the point once and I would tend to do it. I might not do it in front of everybody like I used to. Um, only if we're really sloppy,
yeah,
being a bit lazy, and and it's pretty much team wide. Will I sit down and show some crazy transition defense like 5 clips in a row, and say like we're not going to win with this.
do you think that that's evolution in your coaching, or do you actually think it's because younger people in this day and age have changed, and their makeup is less, they just have that, they don't have the ability to take that coaching stroke criticism as well as what the younger
I
people.
think I've changed. I think I don't think kids have changed that much, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, but I would say it's not like you just learn. It's not necessary. There are things that my father did that might have worked, but I don't think you have to do it. You don't have to do it that way. You can get
Right.
the same result different way.
Interesting. Talk about a little bit about getting involved into the Great Britain national team program, and now obviously as the the pinnacle of the under-20s head coach. Talk about that process, and how you got involved and what were the steps to get to there.
Well, it was, it's always about moving forward, getting better, and it applies to coaching as well. You need new challenges. So the natural progression from Sevenoaks was to the national teams. Um, uh, I was around when um, they were, I can remember there were 3 of us who were trying to be the under 16 head coach, and Karen Burton I think she became the under 16 head coach, and Jim McGinn became the development coach. And
Sure.
I kind of wandered between the two, like helping out. I think I started with Jim and I did some stuff, and I then became an assistant with Karen for a few years. And yeah, no, I just hung in there. I hung around it. I did whatever I could to be involved. I went to tournaments in Europe just to watch. I can remember putting together clips of some of the players that I saw in Europe, things that they did, moves that they made, and then bringing those clips back to the development camp to show the kids what they needed to learn how to do.
Sure.
I wanted to be a head coach, interviewed multiple times and got turned down uh, countless times. I don't know how many
Sure.
times, and was frustrated. And yeah, thought of just giving up many times. And then I had applied for the under 18 job, and Michael Ball was the under 18s coach, and he decided to take. He didn't want to, at the last minute he wanted. I think his wife was pregnant again or something,
Sure.
and he didn't want to do it, and I got put in as under 18 coach, and it turned out that it was this phenomenal, really special group of players. A lot of whom are still playing. Some
Sure.
of the best players that we've had. They were a year young, and we ended up finishing second and earning promotion. This was in 2012, I think. That was phenomenal experience.
Sure.
And Yeah, I mean, that was a journey and a joyful one, and I have a lot of memories from there. Um, and the
And that,
next year, go ahead.
and at the time, this around 2012 period. I mean, was there integration with under 20s and with the women's team? I guess probably not with the Olympic team, and that was post Olympics. What was your
Yeah,
thought?
very little. There was, well, I think there was money then. I
Yeah,
think there
there
was some
was
money.
money. There was
You
money.
know, I
Yeah.
don't remember. I didn't have any involvement in the budget spending. I just said what I wanted to do. My team manager probably was privy to all that, but I just said, okay, we want to have this many camps. I mean, I've brought in my involvement now, I bring in the schedule that we had then and say, this is what I want, but
Sure. Yeah.
we're gonna. I'm sorry, but you're only gonna get 5 days.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, we had like 14 games and, traveling and, camps throughout the year. And it was just, but it's not, that doesn't happen anymore.
No. And what Warwick and Vladan was Vladan just coming in at that moment?
Yeah.
12, 13, I think.
Mm.
Am I right in thinking? Warwick was still there, obviously.
Mhm.
And then Vladan obviously took over from there. And then what was the next process after that?
Well, we got to we played in the A
A
division the next
division,
year.
yeah.
We lost our best player to a long-term injury. I had a lot of issues with that time. They took a lot of my players, went and played under 20s. We were in the A division with a good chance of staying up if we were intact and we had good prep. And they, I think 4 or 5 of the players played under 20, so they were missing in the lead up to our tournament, and then they kind of just dropped in the week before, and they were tired. I learned some things about players then. These girls were leaving a lot of them were leaving for the States at the end of our tournament, literally, one day, after getting back. So they would have done the 20s tournament camp, then our tournament, and then go home and go to the university. And I've sent kids to college, and I know that that's not easy. It's not how it works. So they were kind of bummed out, and we performed poorly. We didn't play well. We went right back down to the
B division.
B division. So it wasn't a very pleasant time for me. Trying to, come on,
Absolutely.
Don't you love it? Aren't you happy to be here?
Yeah.
Don't you want to, prepare hard and play? And it was quite a struggle. Is my memory of it.
And taking it or a little bit further now with the under 20s. I mean, what are the lessons then in respect to that now? I mean, are you do you feel there's integration with these underage teams, 18, 16s, 18s, 20s, and then it filtering into the women's team?
I think I think back then there was very little linkage between, across teams and among the coaches. And I think although they did do some national team camps, I remember those were okay. But now I have a sense there's more ties. Like, I've had conversations with the under 18 coach and under 16s. We're talking to each other. I've talked to Chema about what the seniors are doing, and I think there's potential to move it. It had started to move in a really good direction, and this, not having a tournament last summer is kind of
hurt. Yeah,
hurt a bit.
Do you think that that's exactly the opposite to the men's team? But do you think that that's because Chem has produced this, incredible feel-good factor, and the fact that the team has got success, the women's team, is profiled, it's got success, it's on the edge, right there of world class. If not, it is world class. I would say it's world class, but it's right there in the top of the world. Do you feel that that's kind of had a galvanizing effect for the underage women girls programs?
Oh, I would, yeah, you'd have to say it does. It's created a vision, for the young players and the young coaches, unified it a bit, absolutely. Um, but it's also um, uh, I feel like this last round of hiring the, the performance group has made a real effort to, tie the groups together, at least on the girls' side. I think it's
Sure.
probably happened on the boys' side too, but that there are connections, there are links, and there are certain things we want to do, in the same way.
That's not
Same way.
that's not the same with guys. I can tell you that for
No.
now, because I was the one that had the vision to do that,
Right.
and
But it
unfortunately,
probably depends on the
yeah,
coaches as well.
for sure,
Like I have a
yeah,
relationship with
yeah,
Henrik, the under 18s coach, and we all, Jen Leadham, think that her coming in as under 16 coach is great,
right.
great thing, and we support that, and we talk to each other. So, there's a bit of a vision to it.
There's no question that there's some. I feel that there's better relationships now between all of the underage group coaches, and there's more talking. But the pure, specifically from the men's side, the vision down, i.e., could we do something that Finland did, where they took an absolute vision of a performance director and coach and pushed it all the way down the age groups and had this basketball style, so it's a
Mm.
Finnish style. Their style was 5 out, penetrate and kick, super hard, pressure defense all over the court, shoot the lights out off the 3-point shot. And, for a number of years, they really overachieved their pure talent in
Mm.
almost all of the age groups. Could that happen? Should it happen? I mean, should we be like France, which has not a complete style, but it is defined. It's athletic, it's pressure, it's fast breaking, transition orientated, and should we be going towards that? And unfortunately, we could go forever on talking about the leadership of our sport, but because we don't have leadership of the sport,
Mm.
I certainly from the men's side, I don't actually see that filtering down at this moment.
Well, we did there was a major effort to have a style of play back when Warwick was here.
Yeah.
I think the women are probably we have conversations about being scrappy, hustling, trying to punch above your weight. I wonder if the men's side is a bit, the style would be a bit different.
Sure.
Like they would need like both groups should have a style of play. I think that
Absolutely.
is,
Yeah.
and I have a vision of what I think the men would be more like France than Finland.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And the women could, they could go a lot of ways, because we've got, maybe I know more of the women players, but we have a lot of ways we could go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, this is not in a devaluing way, but I feel that, because we have such a great, we have a base of raw talent in this country, both male and female. I still believe that, what yourself and Chem and all of the other coaches are doing in the women's game, can really propel the sport forward. Unfortunately, I also have my own personal point of view on the fact that as a sporting nation, we have that unfortunate sport called netball, which is blurs the vision of the British sport in public. And I can't, get across to people that, netball is a colonialistic sport, which is, no one outside of the Commonwealth knows actually exists versus, the world's second biggest sport in the world. So it's a tough sell to people in this country. And that's one of our biggest problems, is that we just don't have, someone selling our sport to the actual real level it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, netball is very, very well organized.
Very well organized.
They've got money, and so we would do well to take a look at what they're doing, and borrow what we can. And it shouldn't be a thing about tearing down netball. It should just be build up basketball, and get as many people as we can to play basketball, because there's it'll sell itself. It's a great game. So.
I'm glad you took the diplomatic route there.
I've changed.
Because I'm certainly not.
No.
Just changing the subject slightly, and I'm going to go back all the way to we had this brief conversation, but talk a little bit about the coaching fraternity in this country, and also more about coach education. I'm really interested about understanding this podcast series has been interesting because we've found out so much about coaches that I didn't know. And your background, could have helped so many people, if we had known. So do you feel that the fraternity still isn't together enough as a set of coaches?
It's better. It's improving. Like this, as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that's come out of this pandemic is, coaches are talking a lot more. Interestingly, you mentioned coaches coming, if any reached out to me, but I got recently, early in the pandemic on one of the podcasts, like a coach challenged me and said, well, are you reaching out?
Sure.
Are you reaching out to younger coaches and, where you can? And you've reminded me that I need to do more of that. And, but it's better. I think you need things like, clinics, the thing, John, you mentioned John Collins, and, I can remember going to one of his, what was it? The Coaches Association.
Yeah.
And, but I only remember going to one, and it kind of, I don't know whether that stopped or fell apart, but, it is improving. I know my daughter's getting into coaching a bit, and she's there's a couple of groups that she's involved in where they're mentoring and trying to bring people along, and so there's more happening now than there ever was in terms of coaches interacting, helping each other, and learning and growing. So
do you have, saying that, have you had many coaches asked to come and see you at practice?
God, if I had, I have quite a few ask to come, make arrangements to come, and then don't come.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm more than happy. I'll open it up. It's open anytime to come. Anytime. But I don't know. Is it? Are people busy, or I don't know what it is.
Well,
but they're open anytime.
I think that just a couple of things from my side that I think. Firstly, technology is starting to have a slight adverse effect. Of course, you can get almost anything and in infinite detail now, some of the stuff that's online. But I think that at the same time, it's starting to make the pure physical contact, that go into sessions, that go into games, you're becoming lazy. It's like, I'll give you a classic example. When I speak to a young coach, and I say, right, I want 15 clips on this pick and roll defense, and they'll go to synergy, and I say, no, hold on, first, go and watch the game first, do the breakdown of the game, then go to synergy and get the clips so that they're already prepackaged. Otherwise, you don't understand context. And I said, if you you should be going to watch the actual game live, because you'll understand even more context. You'll understand emotion and what the coach is saying and what the players are saying to each other. And I think that we're getting the younger generation of coaches, again, slightly lazy in that respect, because I personally would have gone anywhere to watch a coach, versus in games or also in practice sessions. And I think that we're starting to.
I think you're right. And just seeing, so everybody knows what a hard hedge is, or what any particular pick and roll defense. But just because you know what it is doesn't mean you can communicate it to your players and actually get them to do it. Yeah. So how, and then what's the process? So you're running in drill in practice, or you're scrimmaging, and it happens. So do you stop it? Do you correct it now? Do you correct it later? Do you correct it with a demonstration? Do you just tell, some players you can just tell, and how do you tell them? How does one coach say it? So it's all, those are things you would only get by actually seeing the practice. It's hard to put that into a video.
Absolutely. And coach, the classic example I use, and I'll take this down to one of the most simplest actions. I explain this to a few coaches at most of the time. Show me how you teach a V cut, and they're able to show the technique. I'm like, that's great. And then now we start 1-on-0, and then it's 2-on-0 with a pass, and then it's 1-on-1 on the wing. And so all of a sudden, the players V-cutting, and they're catching the ball, and they can't even see the basket because they're out of position, and the coach is not correcting them. And I'm saying, look, we taught technique, but now technique is broken down because that player isn't squared up to the basket. And that's that there was coaching 101 that I learned very luckily, at my earliest stage, like you almost certainly did, by going to, watch people in action and seeing people, correct detail. And like you say, it's not easy to be able to be done like that. So great. Let's move very quickly, rapid fire, end of game questions. Favorite drill that you run?
Cutthroat. 4-on-4, 4-on-4. Coach. Because I can stick in any defensive or offensive principle we want to work on. We can put it in that drill and watch for it. So.
Awesome. I actually run cutthroat now, but in 4v4v4. It's actually a version of it that Greg Popovich runs almost on a daily basis.
That's it. Yeah, we do it all the time. We start, usually defensive based.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And we put in things like if we're working on jumping to the ball, we say, all right, so defense has to jump to the ball. You get a point for a stop.
Sure.
5 points, you win. Offense scores, you're out. But if defense doesn't jump to the ball on every pass, you're out. So the coaches just watch. And you can do jump to the ball. You can do boxing out. You can do
everything. Pretty much everything. So you can do start. I do at the like top pro level. I do stance, high hands, active hands.
Absolutely, and
I'll bump the cart. I do.
Even at the top pro level, you got to do it.
Absolutely, it's a great drill. That's a fantastic. Favorite all-time basketball coach?
I've got to go with Steve Fisher.
What a story! What a story. Favorite player to coach? Always, it's an unfair question because you don't even have to answer it if you don't want to. Yeah,
I can't answer. I coached all three of my daughters. I've got Kat Carr for 8 years, Tayani Clark for 4. I mean, these are all just great people to coach.
And lastly, a go-to saying or statement.
So if I'm going to have a good game and I'm going to be a good and I'm going to coach well in that game, I have to have focused before the game on 3 words: calm, positive, and constructive.
Awesome.
And if I haven't set my mind before the game that I'm going to do those things, then I'm a lunatic. And I just get emotional, I go crazy, and the players are upset, and I end up having to apologize.
Right.
So like, just like players can have, like, even the first game we played this year, I was like, had lots of stuff going on, and I didn't get to my mindset before the game, and I found myself, yelling things during the game that, weren't helpful.
Oh.
And, and the thing about the team I have now is they'll tell me.
Interesting.
They'll tell me, if they might yell right back at me, if I'm being unreasonable. And then we got to make up. We got to apologize, and I got to say, I'll do better next time. So, but that's written on my book: calm, positive, constructive.
And do you say that to the players, or do you think that just because that's how?
No, this is for me. This is for
you.
me, because
Awesome.
my daughter will look at me in a game and she'll go, "How was that helpful? Why did you say that? Are you trying to help me? Or are you trying to make me? Are you trying to make me upset?"
Yeah. I think pro male players probably say that in their own mind. They're looking at me every time. How's that helpful? It's awesome that your daughter says that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean,
right.
that's how. And you watch the best coaches. So you watch the top NBA coaches. They're not stomping up and down and getting in somebody's face. They're going to be constructive, and they're going to be positive, and they, so that's my kids help me with. My daughter helps me with that.
Right. Coach, firstly, I really appreciate you being on today. It's been enlightening. I know the pandemic has caused all kinds of issues and problems. Definitely taking your club away from, last season, continuing the success. But I'm pretty certain that once we somehow get over this period in this crazy world, I'm sure that success will come back to you. And I just really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thanks, Tony. I really enjoyed it. It's got a million stories running around in my head, but it would take about 10 podcasts to get them all out.
That's right. Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
Pleasure.